We're still live in the studio, Plus TV Africa. The big stories live right here. It's Democracy Day, and we're not talking about anything other than that. And just before we went on that break, we were talking about security and the state of the nation. We're still talking about the state of the nation, but we're moving our gear to restructuring. And I'm being joined in the studio by Akin Oshutokun. He is a PDP chieftain. He's also a former political advisor to former President Olusegun Obasanjo. It's good to have you join us, sir.
Thank you.
All right, and we also have in the studio a social commentator, Mr. Shola Omolayo. It's good to have you join us, sir.
Good afternoon.
All right, interesting. There have been several calls for restructuring over the years. In fact, 2018, just before the elections, there were so many calls in the midst of the killings and, you know, the kidnappings. We had the big names. We had Gani Adams asking for restructuring. Even the Catholic Church in Nigeria called for restructuring, saying there were too many killings. We had the likes of Professor Wole Soyinka, even former head of states like Babangida also called for restructuring. But the thing is, in Nigeria, there's a way, we have a way of throwing out words, you know, in the air, and then it becomes an in thing, and everybody now starts talking about the issue. So I'll start with you. What is restructuring for the Nigerian sense of it? What kind of restructuring are we talking about here?
Restructuring is restoration of federalism, right? Actually, the word restructuring in the context of the political history of Nigeria needs a bit of clarification. Nigeria, with the independence constitution, it started at 1960. What we had in the independence constitution in 1960, the country comprised of 3 regions, and then in 1963 another one was added to it. Now, the independence of constitution, in my own opinion, and I keep telling people, no other piece of constitution, no other constitution in Nigeria comes near it in terms of what its relevance to the country. And those who produced the constitution, the combined expertise, the knowledge, you know, the sense of commitment to Nigeria. There have been no set of Nigerians that could match them. One, the British government that gave back to Nigeria, who actually created Nigeria, and in that respect, and knew Nigeria more than any other person.
A lot of people would disagree with you.
There's nothing to disagree. So long, they were the one who put us together.
But they tell you that amalgamation was also part of the problem, is one of the core reasons.
Well, whether it is problem or not, that doesn't mean that you know more about it. It is impossible. It's logically impossible for anybody, for the child, to claim that you know more than your father about how you are conceived. Mm-hmm. It is logically impossible. So there is nobody, you know. Then, alongside the British, while those who are referred to as the founding fathers of Nigeria, Azikiwe, Awolowo, and Ahmadu Bello, now, there has been no set of Nigerians of comparable legitimacy, comparable love of patriotism. Now, these were the leaders who produced it, and of course, they had their lieutenants and deputies and so. And they sat down for years. It wasn't the kind of constitution you have these days that you constitute a constitution drafting committee within 1 year. No, years. It was years of preparation and planning that led to that product. Now, there is not that product today. If you look at it, right, you will not be surprised that Nigeria is where we are now. If you look at the extent of deviation that we have had for it. Now, wait. How did we come about how do we come about deviating from it or moving away from it? It was because of 1966. A group of young army officers came. Not that we sat together. There was nothing rational or logical about or consensus when that constitution was thrown aside. It was the decision of guys who did the coup, right? Army officers who did the coup in their own judgment. They arrogated the right to decide for the rest of us, threw it aside. So it was an accident. Now in life, Nigeria is one of the few places where you have an accident, rather than correct that accident, you now use that accident that this is what should happen. You kept on the basis of that accident, perpetuating that accident. That was how Nigeria was taken from 4 regions in 1966 to 36 today. The 36 states we have today, by definition, they are antithetical to federalism, right? And you look at the reasons how those states were created. Some of those states were created on as flimsy and whimsical a reason as maybe you are the girlfriend of the head of state at that time.
Come on.
So that structure had been damaged. That structure had been violated without rhyme or reason. So those of us now asking for restructuring, we're asking that let us go back to the first principles, where the rain started beating us, right? Mm-hmm. And that is 1966. And so theoretically, you have that. Now, in our experience, we have discovered that Nigeria has progressively deteriorated right from that time. Mm-hmm. With this constitution, we have known that it is not working. Compared to what we have from 1960 to 66, what we have from 1966 up to now, right, is a washout. So both theoretically and in practical experience, we know that what we have today is not working.
It's not working.
So the structuring means that we now go back to the rationale, the first principle, behind that constitution and try to make amends. But the most significant voice in recent times, you didn't mention, is President Buhari himself. I think about 2 or 3 weeks ago, he was talking about true federalism.
We will come back to that, but let me come to you, Mr. Omolayo. I see you nod to some things and then shake your head for some things. Yeah. Where do you stand on this whole restructuring thing that we're throwing out in the air?
For me, when it comes to a situation like this, I go to elementary, because all the grammar of this word that I know in the dictionary and the formation grammar has been spoken concerning Nigerian problems, and yet we're not moving on. It then means that something must be wrong. The only thing that Nigeria needs at this point in time is just one man. One man. No matter what you do, if you don't get that right man to lead the cause of this nation, we're going nowhere.
But is it about a man, or is it about the people itself? Because we're diverse people, and we have diverse opinions and wants and needs.
You see, when you find a man that you can trust, let me go spiritual a little bit here, or you call it history. Moses was trained with the knowledge and the power in Egypt. But in the spiritual order, he failed to understand that his timing is completely different from his own thinking. He knew what was wrong, but that was not the time for him to execute his knowledge to judgment. And when he came on board, he was not accepted. And that was why he was self-chasing away until the right time for him to come back and display what is called authority that he has learned from. And the only person he could challenge is the authority, not the people. But in the case of our government, they challenge the people, not they themselves who are the authority that could determine where are we going. When you're talking of restructuring, what happened in the regional government that was displayed between the period of 1960-63 to 1966? It is on record that the western region of this country is far above France or any other country you are talking of.
France?
Yes.
This western region was ahead of France.
Sure.
In what regard?
Wait, when did we have our radio station? When did we have our railways? Look at infrastructure that we're having at those times. It's not about the
water power. In the southwest region of the country. The
southwest region.
We didn't have a radio before France.
When did France have their own radio station?
Almost 100 years before.
Okay. When you talk of development, you see, we need to go back and read the event of what happened. You understand me? Even before we find ourselves in this mess. We are doing well in the West. And I want to believe the Eastern region were so doing their own thing. They might not get it right, technically. So the North are so good in their agri-produce. What went wrong? There was a coup, right? By self-group of person who felt something was wrong. The same thing that happened in 1983 was what was displayed in 1966. When this coup came up on 31st of December 1983, some people were celebrating. Unknown to them, the danger that was ahead. Thank God for the lives of Gani Fawemi. By January 1984, it was said, Gani went, saying that they've taken us backward by another 20 years. How do we find ourselves in this mess? It is about leadership. If you look at the timing, when some of these leaders came on board, you will see the conduct of their display of arrogancy in that institution. Don't let's go far. The only time that we might say we wanted to get it right in the military era was in 1999 when Obasanjo came on board. We might like him or not. But that was the only time we were trying to rechannel our movement to the right path.
But a lot of people would also say
that is what a lot, because for you to rebuild a dilapidated structure, you have to move the people out. And in that process, many people will not like that. So we have element of issues in our land. It just takes one man. Who are we looking up to? Whom are we looking up to?
But that's what the problem is. You're saying one man in this country.
If Buhari,
we bring we have the issue of federal character. So you can't even. Who's the person who's going to come?
That is what we are saying.
We look at things through the prism of religion, ethnicity. You know, all of those things.
Do you know what?
Get in the way. So
see,
which one man can take that job?
The word who is one man. You see, in process of time, we would have grown. Before you arrest a vehicle that is going by one way, you need another enforcement vehicle that will go through that one way to catch that person. You see, we have a very wrong timing at the time when Obasanjo was asking for the third time because of our constitution. The third time of Obasanjo, in some understanding, were morally right but legally wrong. Either you like it or not. You see, we have...
I'm sorry. Let's come back. The issue of the third term is not...
You see, when you are talking of restructuring, what do? Everybody is saying restructure. Do we go back to the regional government or what? Where some states will not allow. They will not want to join hands with you. Okay. Even for you to bring the local government together, because we are talking of restructuring. Which part are we going to bring together? Is it the educational sector of this country? Where a man in the northern part of this country told us in the days of old that the South ought to wait for another 70 years for them to meet up. So which restructuring are you talking of? Is it the restructuring of telling us that, okay, let us grow the cow first before we begin to plant? Or you tell, how do you restructure?
Well, let me go to my question. Let me come back to my question, and you both can take on this question. We're saying let's go back. And we're in the 21st century when other parts of the world, even India, are talking about artificial intelligence, and we're here saying let's go back to 1966.
I'm asking the question because
I'm just wondering.
Do we go back?
No, it's a question. I'm asking the question.
Okay, you're asking.
We're going back to what exactly? To use the old ways to resolve new problems?
The state and
I'm just asking. I'll start with you, and then you can take on the question, because you're saying go back, and you're also saying the problem started in 1966.
Do we go back?
Because
my brother said here that the Constitution was written by the Oyinbo people who never know their intention why that Constitution was written based on their own interest. Is it wrong? For the fact that my father...
Well, he's saying that they did a good job.
Excuse me. For the fact that my father did not send me to school based on his own understanding. And I now choose to stay at home, that once my father did not send me, I follow the trend because I think it's wiser than I do. Or, you know, in those days, you paid tally number. They give you tally number in banks. Should we still stay in that old era waiting for tally number that you can even get your tally number and travel to Enugu, come back to get money.
So the question
elementary
is,
knowledge
how do we solve the problem? I'm coming back to you. I was asking him the question, how do we solve the problem? We have an age-old problem, but do we go back, do a back to the future thing?
See, look, you are getting it completely wrong. It's not a matter of going back. It's a matter of applying the right formula. The Constitution is a living document. The Constitution of the United States today has largely remained what it was since 1776, including the one that is causing a lot of problems, the Second Amendment, where it says that the people have the right to bear arms. So it's not a matter of going back or not going back. It's a matter of getting the right formula. If the right formula was what you were using 100 years ago, then you might as well, to the extent that you are not using now, to that extent to which you are wrong. So there's nothing going back about it. You are just saying that you restore there is a framework within which the governance and the structure of Nigeria was defined. It is the reason behind that constitution that we are going back to. There's no way we can go physically back to what we had then. That is a wrong definition of the problem. It is that, look, federalism, if we are talking about federalism is not an abstract thing. It has its own definition. I mean, it's a prescription. It is, if you prescribe in 1960, if you prescribe Panadol for headache, and today you are prescribing Gamalin, then that's what is going back there. If then you go back to Panadol and you are saying you are going back, that is not the reason. So what is happening? Listen, federalism, when you look at Nigeria today, right, the only constitutional prescription that can work is federalism. Federalism entails certain principles and things like that. First, you have 2 tiers of government. The 2 tiers of government, the central and the regional or state, that are supposed to be coordinate. In other words, none is inferior to the other. And as a matter of fact, there are 3 types of powers, constitutional powers. You have the exclusive list, the concurrent list, and the residual. The exclusive list is exclusive to the federal government. There are things like foreign affairs, military, consular, things like that. Then you have the concurrent. In concurrent, you can have education. That is concurrent. Concurrent means that both the federal and the state or regional government can act on it. That is concurrent. Then you have the residual. The residual powers are those things that are not specified in either the exclusive or concurrent list, and it is ceded to the states. First, you don't have a local government created by autonomous of the state. Also, this is one of the reflections of the aberration that we have in Nigeria today. Federalism does not preconceive or presuppose that you will have a local government autonomous of the, because local government is supposed to be is supposed to be subordinate, a creation of the second tier. That's why you have the local, you want the extent of local rule. So, and this is looking at Nigeria, then you now look, okay, this is the theory, right, of what it says. Now, in the application to Nigeria, you see, that's why I said, also in our practical experience. Now, Aristotle says something, let fools contend. Whatever is best administered is best. We are not asking for restructuring of federalism just for the sake of it.
Okay.
If what you have today is working, nobody will say so. But it has been said on the basis of science, and thinking that it is the only federalism that can work for this country. And
but
then
looking at how Nigeria is,
finish, right? To the extent that you deviate from that prescription, the country will not work. And that is precisely the history of Nigeria. Now, you can look at factors responsible for that, like military dictatorship. Military dictatorship is unified rule, But military dictatorship was one of the things that destroyed the federalism that we have today. Military is not supposed to be in governance. Then that is an aberration. So a society in the first place is not supposed to take a cue from military, the structure, or how the military functions. That is different entirely.
So what are we supposed to do? Throw it? Because the truth is, we have so many constitutions. In fact, we have so many things in the constitution that are not supposed to be there in what you have described.
National Conference of 2014. You see, the point is that we are also not reinventing the wheel, right? What we are saying is that there are areas. Look at the state police, for instance. Look at the security crisis this country is confronting. And there's almost a unanimity of opinion that one of the critical things you need to do is localize security, decentralize it. You have state police. That is one of the things federalism is saying. So it's not something abstract or you are reinventing the wheel. It is something that is for you yourself can,
You make it sound so easy peasy.
Exactly.
And so I'm going to ask Mr. Shala this question. If it's that easy, why is it so difficult to get us to adopt this system of government if it had once worked for us?
Because it's not in the selfish interest of some people. Now, the thing is that what we have now works to the advantage of the kind of revenue allocation formula that you have. What you have today, the more local governments that you have, the more money you get to your area. The more states that you have, the more. So at the end of the day, this is the problem that we're having. Look, if you are having the derivation, for instance, is given a lot of emphasis on that federalism you call fiscal federalism. So this is the reason that those who have a vested interest in it is because of the undue advantage, or benefits that you are getting from it.
And that's why it's not working. So, Mr. Shalamolayo, we are, in quote, operating a democratic system of government where the people are number one priority, should be, on paper.
Okay.
I had to say that. But he has also made a statement saying the reason why he thinks they're not doing this because it doesn't serve their selfish interests. But where do we come in? We the people. Because we're more than these people who are governing us. Where do we come in? Because if we know what is good for us, and in quote, we put those people there to serve us and they're not doing the right thing, what are we supposed to do?
The common people are everywhere in the country. The common people, it is in the interest of the common people in Kano State for them to have more local governments than the people in the Lagos State. So your interests are not common.
Is it... Mr. Shala, please come in. What do you think?
all of these laws, rules are there. Who is to execute them? Is that not what has been my question? That the problem is about the leadership. When I'm talking of woman, I'm talking about the leadership of the state, of the nation.
But who makes a leader?
We, the people.
Back to my question.
Because they have created an attitude in us. Laziness. Self has been part of our existence. You want to vote for one man, they've planted a seed of laziness that leads to poverty in our mind. The problem is not the poverty of the belly, the poverty of the mind. That is why you will see a grown-up man who is even working on his own. He has a job, but you still need to persuade him with 1,000 naira to go and vote. What is the problem? Is it his belly? But the mind. There's so much work on our thinking that we get to believe that we don't even know what we want. A man you did not know, you've not seen for years, just came up on board and tells you that he wants to contest an election. The problem is not the structure. The problem is the people. And we'll continue to talk to ourselves. not until when we are able to send a kind of orientation to the minds of Nigeria that this is how things used to be, and this is what we think we should be doing now, so that we can have a better life in the future. Whatever structure you put on ground, you can't get it right. And in that, we might, along this line of talking, one man will begin to show up here and there. Because the people who destroy the fabric of this country are just a few group of persons who felt that things not to be in this way, and they came with their gun and destroyed the whole structure of this country, and we find ourselves in this place. So no amount of constitution you're going to put in place, like you have rightly said now, that will work. Because the people who wrote the first, who gave us the first constitution, the likes of the Obafemi Awolowo, Azikiwe, Tafawa Balewa, if they could not arrest the situation there, you will know what it means. These are people that are so full in knowledge, in knowing that this is what we ought to do at this point in time in getting into our independence.
But I find it very difficult to believe that Nigerians are very intelligent people, I must say. There's nowhere in the world that you don't find a Nigerian excelling.
We're so intelligent to serve now.
Let me just get to my
That's why you find one individual almost richer than the state.
Why don't we bring that to bear in making or turning around our country? I always make reference to Rwanda, and they're very tiny. It's a tiny nation compared to us. Again, that would be another excuse. Oh, you can't compare Rwanda to us. How many are they compared to Nigeria? But they had genocide. They had a genocide. But look at them today. It was a resolve, a total resolve by the people and the leadership.
India is over 700 million.
So what is Nigeria's problem?
China is over 1 billion. So it's not about the population. It's about
comparison. Right. Nigeria's, the way Nigeria is consisted, Rwanda is not operating federalism. The way Nigeria, those who consist of Nigeria, right, by themselves, right, they have the capacity, to subsist as a nation. You have the majority tribes like Yoruba, Hausa, Fulani, Igbo. Each of these groups can subsist, as a nation unto itself. Now, the reason why we have what we have is that how you then bring those two, ideally, maybe they should have been left on their own to do so.
Well, we're together.
The
now,
circumstances brought, exactly. Then, when you are brought together, you've got to have a procedure for you living together amicably. Not one not disturbing the other, or not one disturbing or arresting the development. That is one of the reasons of federalism that, look, you can grow at your own pace, right? You can go at your own pace. And likely that was what it was, since 1966. There is a large disparity, like in education, for instance, between the South and the North, right? But that then that was not used to the advantage of the North, the disadvantage of the North. They had their own government, they had their own region on which they can decide what they want to do. One of the things they decided, for instance, was that northernization. They were not going to employ people from the South to come and take so positions there. So when you take those diversities and peculiarities into consideration, the appropriate constitutional structure for that is federalism, in which you are together, right? But you have relative autonomy in your own sphere of influence.
But isn't that a problem? So, the whole indigent thing that we, no matter what the Constitution says about living in a place for this long, you have the right to contest, you have the right to do this. We still want to live in that cocoon. We still want to say, well, you're not from here.
It's not a matter
why do you have this and that?
It's not a matter of living in cocoon or no cocoon. Listen, right? I'm not just talking theory. We are not debating or arguing about abstract. We have seen in the experience of Nigeria what worked and what did not work. The golden phase of Nigeria history was from 1953 to 1966. And that is because you had the right constitutional prescription. He made reference to say how advanced the Western region was. That was because they had the latitude within their own sphere to develop on their own momentum.
And because we have leaders that are not selfish. It's about leadership.
Well, it's not about leadership. Leadership, listen, science does not assume the best case scenario. Science assumes the worst, right? Look, the example is United States today, right? Checks and balances, separation of powers. When you are designing your constitution, you don't assume that good people will be in government.
So you have to preempt that the bad guys will come.
Just wait, right? So it gives you a prevention that when a leader, because you are not in a position to determine at all times what kind of leader that you have, right? Awolowo contested presidential election prime minister how many times? He lost against candidates that were weaker or without that. So the only thing you have power to do is the structure for you to contain the excesses or the inadequacies of whoever is in government. I give you the example of America. If America does not have the kind of constitution that they have today, checks and balances, you can imagine what Trump will have done to America. It is their constitution that has curtailed him, that has constrained him against putting export to his worst impulses. So, this is the relevance of constitution to society. The cause you are talking about, this is antiquity, where you are the philosopher king in ancient Greece. That was at that time you talk about philosopher king being in government, where you have, but society had evolved far beyond that. And the only thing you can do once you have democracy, which is everybody is equal before the law, right? You don't say, so anybody, for whatever reason, Hitler became the Chancellor of Germany. You saw how he became the Chancellor of Germany. He was not the best, he was a bad leader, right? Nevertheless, as advanced as Germany was at that time, they could not stop him from becoming the leader of Germany. In Nigeria today, you can say, who says that Buhari was the best? Probably who are the people contesting against him in 2011? Quite a number of people. But the peculiarities of Nigeria, the fanatical followership that he had in the Muslim North, for instance, which that Muslim North, the reason they want him as their leader is not the same reason we want our own leader. They see him as somebody as like almost a religious bigotry leader. That is it. It's not because that he's the one who can perform best as president. So I'm telling you this to know that your capacity to influence whether you have a good or bad man as president is limited. It's possible you can get a good one, but anticipate that it is also possible that you can get a bad one. And because of that, set structures in motion that can contain. So
bottom line, we need a good constitution. That is what is going to solve the problem. Who's going to write this constitution? In closing, we have just 2 minutes to go. In closing,
how do
we get the people?
You are not fair. Because my problem is the people. He is talking about the institution. Who will create this institution? Because I think we need an answer from him now. When I'm talking about, because this same constitution you're talking about, we've had all kinds of constitution. When are they execute any of this?
It was executed in 1960.
After 1960. Exactly. Because you said we should not go back.
Exactly.
You are saying we should not go back.
I didn't say you should not go back.
Now, wait.
Don't get mixed up. Don't get mixed up.
No, I'm not getting
a formula, a scientific formula, is not a scientific.
What scientific formula is going to be mixed up?
It's not a formula.
It's going to be created by human beings. It's not going to be built up by robots. Even the robot you're talking about is going to be programmed by somebody. So this constitution that we need to follow, the guidance that we need now, where are we going to get it? Maybe we need to travel to Europe.
No. The thing is, we can formulate it. If some, like he said,
why do they create states?
Then,
simple question.
Why don't we come together and formulate it?
First of all, why do we create state? My people were shouting, we want state, we want state. Why? Because they want government to get to them. Little did they know that governor they were trusting is not going to pay their salary for 9 months. Is it the constitution that is holding the governor not to pay salaries?
Yes.
The constitution says I cannot pay, or I should not pay.
There is the constitution that created that
vacuum. Or they disobey. They even disobey the constitution.
I think he's saying it's the lacuna in the constitution that is giving powers like this. Because if it is wrong, I mean, we could see what happened in the U.S.
That means the word corruption. That means the word corruption is not in existence. If the constitution back that
the basis
policy
of governance in any society, federalism, is that the state that is created, that's what I'm telling you, not the way military creates a state. According to the constitution, one of the factors that is needed is your capacity to viability.
Okay.
So right from the word go, if you create a state that is not viable, you are going to reap the benefits. Wait.
The one that are Bible and the one that are not Bible. Thank you.
Listen.
The people who are governing this state they've not been productive enough. That is why they could not meet up with the demands of their followers. What of in state where you know they have more than enough? What happens?
Like which state?
No,
go ahead now.
Lagos State.
Okay, Lagos State. So Lagos State has not done...
Lagos State, Rivers State.
Exactly. Those are many out of 36.
Even in the central, Abuja.
So the percentage of those states compared to the number of 36 states, how many of these states have... But these are...
That's what I'm saying.
These are debates...
Look, if you are...
So these are debates that we've had on different fora. How viable are these states? And there's still people agitating for political reasons, not necessarily for economical reasons.
Why, if they are not viable, why will the workers that are being paid, that ought to be paid 100,000, 50,000, are building a structure of 50 million? Where do they get their resources from? The leaders.
Where do they get it? Corruption is not...
Again. Okay, the constitution also supports the corruption. Or the people are beating the rules.
How did you get that logic? How did you arrive at that?
No, because if we are not...
Listen, right?
Okay. Gentlemen, we need to go. Just
if you spend money that you don't work for, right? To that extent, you are prone to corruption. Okay. The states in Nigeria today, they get the money they spend from Abuja. It is not from the people. Okay. Listen, if the money that the government of Ekiti State is from the taxation of the people of Ekiti State,
let's even say the state is not viable. Let us talk of states that are viable.
If you are the one paying for the sustenance of that government, if they see a convoy of cars, brand new jeeps, they will start stoning it.
Where?
Well,
in Ekiti?
Anywhere.
Can we see that happening?
Okay, we should start with that, or that's next.
No, because that is what, if it is not
we need to go, gentlemen, but unfortunately, I don't know if that will happen in Nigeria anytime soon. But we've been talking about restructuring. We seem to not necessarily, at this point, not really know what we want. If it is something that we can achieve. Well, one of my guests says it's achievable, and the other is still trying to understand if we really...
But the president said so.
Well, but when we've been trying to debate on it, and I still haven't been able to get anything from us. There is nothing.
No. Positive restructuring just means restoration to federalism. And as I said, that was what the Buhari said.
I asked, what's keeping us from getting there?
Look,
and we've not been able to get any concrete
because
reason.
of those who have vested interest in the system, including the president. Oh. If this president now says that he believes in it, that is one order.
When I talk about one man here, I thought you said
it is not. No. Forget about it. It's
not
the only.
In the place of crisis, one man must lead.
It's not the only.
Put a stop. You understand me?
How do you lead if you don't have followership?
Listen. I'm even talking about the constituency that he lives, not him as a person. Right? If those who are against the status, those today in Nigeria, if you look at it, they are maybe northeast and the northwest. Those are the two aid regions or zone where there is a block opposition to restructuring. That's what we have. Not somebody, not some one individual. No.
Okay.
Well, I want to say thank you to my guests. They've been really interesting. Shola Omolayo, he's a social commentator. Mr. Akin Oshutokun, he is a PDP chieftain and former political advisor to former president. PDP
I'm not
chieftain.
a PDP chieftain.
Well, apparently he's also former political advisor to former president Olusegun Obasanjo. Thank you, gentlemen. It's been a very heated conversation. We'll be right back after the break. Stay with us.